Hey everybody, what's going on? We're back with another installment of SRT. I'm Juan Joe alongside Ryan McNulty. We got Keith Poshik. In other videos, we talk about stories, we talk about funny moments in wrestling, ridiculous things, pet peeves. But you know what? Let's talk about the show format itself, because a lot of times we have that debate, which is what's more important, the match, the storyline, a little bit of both, and then how is that structured? So that's what we're going to be talking about. So taking it, open forum. Either one of you can bring this up right now. Just when you think show format, what is in there that you think is absolutely necessary? Aside from the wrestling, of course, because I'm pretty sure that's step one.
How about 2 hours instead of 3?
Agreed.
Let me write this down. Okay, so 2 hours. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So what happens in those 2 hours? The show opens up. Pyro goes off, assuming there's enough budget for that. What's next?
Most of the time with the show, you'll see it either opens up with a match or they open up with a promo. And I think either one's acceptable. But I definitely like a variety. I think more or less now Raw opens up with promos almost every single week. So I do appreciate when they just open up straight with a match right away. Because now it seems like we have to wait a half an hour before we see the first match on a Raw.
See, me personally, I like the fact they start out with a promo because it kind of sets the stage for the whole show and where the direction's going to go for that show.
Now, we weren't really going to get into this, but when you say promo, how long are we talking here? Is like the maximum to the point where it's like, okay, it's been 30 minutes, so a huge chunk has only been this. How long? 10 minutes? 15 minutes?
I'd say 10, 15, enough to say like, hey, X, I'm coming after you tonight, or you did this last week, so we're going to get it on, or something like that.
Okay, then what happens after that? So the promo is to establish, okay, this is going to be the main event, this is going to be something that happens, but then what are the few things that happen, so on and so forth? We don't have to work on specifically a top 10 list here, but what goes on next?
Honestly, the next segment, something that not directly related to it at all, just kind of let that hang for a little while, and then maybe at the first and second hour mark, go back to that big thing. But that was one of my favorite things about the whole Attitude Era, is they would just have like big thing, little segment, big thing, little segment, and then you just have these directly like unrelated storylines are sprinkled throughout the show, and then you just kind of it keeps you watching for the big thing, but everybody else gets that little bit of time.
And I think you brought up. Yeah. Well, you go.
I was gonna say, I agree with Keith that I like that they do something different, because nowadays on Raw you'll see opening match promo, and then somebody who's in that ring ends up in a match.
Yeah.
So I definitely like to see just something different. We've already been looking at these people for 25 minutes. Let's get something else going on.
Yeah, and about that something else, because, we a lot of times get the guy that's in the ring in a match or something, but when should the bigger names, so like, say right now, we got Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, should they always be in the main event? Sometimes you see them in the beginning of the show, but we never see them halfway. It's always one of the two, right? Why is that, and what do you prefer?
I kind of like that sometimes they do, throw someone at maybe like the 10 o'clock hour for a main event or something like that. But, I'm okay with them kind of bookending the show where they kind of start off in the promo and they end with the main event match. Because then you kind of have you fill in between, but then you kind of end where you started, and it's like nice closure on the show.
Exactly. Put it at the beginning and the 2 hour marks. That way you kind of have a nice flow, and then that gives everybody time with filler in between.
This is where it gets a little sketchy. Where do the Divas fit into the picture? Because a lot of times we talk about the fact that the NXT Divas, awesome. They get a lot of time, great matches, great attention. The WWE Divas, they are always wedged between the big match and the other big match, and they are treated as the break. That's where the people go to the bathroom, and unfortunately, that's become the culture of it.
I mean, there's no reason why a Diva segment can't act as one of those normal filler segments, like have the Intercontinental title feud, and then have the Divas, and then go to the big thing. Or then maybe next week have the big thing, then go to the Divas. It's just another filler segment.
Yeah, I think the Divas are kind of just always put in a position to fail.
Totally.
Because they're always, like you said, after the crowd has already exhausted themselves, they kind of put them in there while the crowd's kind of trying to get their energy back for the main event. So obviously, I think you need to kind of switch around that segment. And there was a while where, there might have been 2 Diva segments on Raw, and they actually put one in a position to do better. And, and I feel like they were starting to gain some momentum, but lately I feel like they haven't done that. So I would appreciate if they changed it up. Don't always put the Divas in that same spot every single week. You just kind of rotate. Sometimes the mid-card guys have to take it. Sometimes the Divas have to. But always putting them there is just going to perpetuate the fact that the crowd is told not to care about it.
It's interesting because it's kind of, you need that spot. So somebody's always going to be set up to fail in that spot because you can't go from big thing to big thing. So it's just a matter of who gets that spot.
Yeah, I remember Seth Rollins actually said that in his Talk is Jericho interview, that was one of the reasons their Shield match at WrestleMania was pretty much, a filler, because you can't take the importance away. So sometimes the Divas seem to be just the ones that always end up paying the price. Now, say we do have that 2-hour show format, right? A lot of times in Raw, we'll get that one lengthy match, and we get a bunch of 5-minute matches, disqualification matches, inconclusive matches. So, number one, where should a lengthy match in a 2-hour slot go? And then just sort of, who's in there? Because you always want to save some things for the pay-per-view.
I mean, you don't need one every single week, so maybe have it like a once-a-month style thing. And then as far as who's in it, you can rotate that. Like the big, long match doesn't always have to be your big main feud. Like maybe put the mid-card match as the big, long match one time, and then have your main event be the big, long match. Just switch it up. Variety is really the big thing.
Yeah, and also for, the big type matches like that, like I'd like to see, like an Intercontinental title like main event match on Raw every once in a while and have them like really go, give them time, let it be an awesome match. We don't always have to see Reigns and Bryan or somebody ending the show. You could have a solid Intercontinental title match between Barrett and Ambrose or something like that actually ends the show.
And with that, we might get a conclusive main event sometime this year.
Oh, it's okay. Now, let's not say things we can't take back. No, but what Ryan actually brought up makes an excellent point, which is like the main event scene is always basically booked for these, this little circle here. But remember when Shelton Benjamin once beat Triple H in the main event of Raw? Where are moments like that? The moments that are out of nowhere, genuinely, you do not expect that to be the main event match, but it seems to be. Or
even Trish Stratus and Lita when they main evented for the Women's Championship. Definitely more of that. We always see the same people ending the show. It would be nice for them to give somebody else a shot. The people who actually are allowed to have like a great match on a non-pay-per-view.
Exactly. Now, one of the last things I want to bring up is, okay, so we're saying that the main event doesn't always have to be one particular thing. But what about the in-ring promos? How much is too much? Because the three of us agree it's pretty good to start out with like a 10, 15-minute promo, right? We got that out of the way.
Yes.
But then what? Because obviously we don't have one storyline. We don't have two. Like right now, look at what's happening currently in the WWE. We actually have a lot of storylines that some of them go to SmackDown. But let's say we're only focusing on Raw. How many promos is too many?
Probably more than 3, and I'd only have like one long one. Anything more than 5 minutes after you have that 15 to 20 minute one, I think is a little too much. But different from that, I would say you could have plenty of short backstage segments. I'm okay with those, but the in-ring promos, keep them to maybe 2 to 3, no more than that.
To break down the hour, I would say like have it 2/3 wrestling and then 1/3 promo. And then that's probably a good middle ground.
Last kind of interesting tidbit. Now, when we go to the ratings game, we see that not necessarily the wrestling part is what gets the ratings, but yet you just said 2/3 wrestling, 1/3 promo. Why is that for you? Would too many promos just tune you out, even if you got that one great match?
I mean, how many things can you say at the same time over and over? Whether it's The Miz and Damian Sandow building something up and then Dean Ambrose and Wade Barrett coming out to just say the same thing in a different format, you can really only go back to that well so many times. And
True.
I think it's more about making the matches more interesting instead of them being like the low-rated spots. Because if you think about going back to the Attitude Era, the segment that beat out where WWF at the time beat out WCW was a match between Mick Foley and The Rock at the time. But it was just that the stuff happening in that match was so interesting that it made that segment interesting, like everything going around the match.
I could lean closer to somewhere between, like somewhere close to half and half even, and that might seem like too much talking, but not necessarily just promos, but like I said, backstage segments, not just interviews, but, you know, guys interacting, just doing whatever backstage. And I think for me, on Raw, what needs, because like pay-per-views is really where I want to see the great matches. That's where I'm really paying attention to the matches. There's a lot of throwaway matches on Raw, but at the end of the day, whether it's match or promo, things need to seem like they're progressing in some way. That's what matters to me. You know, you can have some great matches, but if it seems like everybody's just spinning their wheels until the pay-per-view,
Totally.
it's really not as interesting, you know. And those backstage segments or promos are what's supposed to make me care about what's going on in the ring, so you need that there.
Yeah, so we actually got a lot of things. So number one, we can agree 2 hours is the best length for a show. I mean, even Triple H said that in his WWE Network interview with Stone Cold. Number two, open the show with a promo. Number three, you can switch up to a random match. It doesn't need to lead directly to a guy that was already in the ring. Number four, start or end with big names. Don't really put them in the middle. Number five, the Divas do need a better place in the show. Then number six, once a month we can have a long match, and it doesn't need to be the main event guys. It can be the IC guys who, number seven, they should be able to main event. It doesn't need to be the 5 or 6 guys that circle the main event scene. Number eight, add the variety. So the same way we got Trish and Lita and Shelton Benjamin beating Triple H on Raw, we can get that. Number 9, add a lot of short backstage segments. It doesn't need to be all 10, 15-minute promos. Number 10, either 50-50 or 2/3 wrestling, 1/3 promo, but somewhere around there. But don't have it be like 80%, either one of them. And then sort of 2 tidbits. Storytelling in the ring. Can we agree with that? Because at the end of the day, they go in the ring, but that in itself can really tell a story.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And then next, save some stuff for the pay-per-view, because a lot of times we get these inconclusive matches on Raw, so they lead up to the pay-per-view, but guess what? Then we still got that match a little bit, and it's not as cool because they have already thrown the first and second punch, so have that happen. What is your top 10 things that should be the format of a WWE show? Let us know by leaving a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you like this video. Also help us by giving us a thumbs up. And the podcast is available when, people? When is it?
Tuesday!
Tuesday! So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll be back with more of the SRT right here in this box that we're currently trapped in. Thanks for watching.